Welcome back to We Don't Color on the Dog. Property taxes are a big issue in the state of Florida. We've had Doge going around the state. We also have Florida Tax Watch has come back with some reform options. The House committee has started meeting. Alex, how do you see property taxes unfolding in this legislative session coming up?
Well, I can't tell you, I'd be foolish to try and predict what consensus we'll have across all legislators between the Senate and the House. I mean, my personal perspective is I think some type of constitutional proposition to go on the ballot next November should relate to something like homestead exemptions to property taxes. I think that would make the most sense. It wouldn't eliminate property taxes. It would still allow for that revenue to come in through properties that are commercial in nature or residential properties that are rented and not homestead or second homes. But as far as homestead, I think that's a good proposal. I think it would help people to afford their homes. I think it would help people adjust the cost of living increases they've seen, including the rising costs of property insurance over the past several years. That would make sense. But the big topic that makes me sweat far more, make me concerned far more, is what, if anything, we're going to do to replace that revenue. I don't think it's responsible. In fact, I think it's reckless for us as the state to put out this proposal that doesn't affect our budget directly, but could dramatically affect hundreds of municipalities' budgets without really digging in on it. I mean, tax policy is tough. The vast majority of tax policy changes we make, there's always someone that feels like a loser. They're either paying more or they're suddenly not exempt from a tax they used to not have to pay. And if we have to increase revenues via some other method, there's going to be someone that feels like a loser. And a lot of times in these tax policy questions, no one feels like a winner. I could see a lot of homeowners, especially homeowners with kids, potentially have to pay more if our revenue offset is some type of increase in sales tax somewhere. Depending on how we set that up and depending on the local government, where you're located in the state, you could be paying more based on how you live your life. So these are all questions that we have to dive deep on, that we have to really consider. It's not as simple as saying, we're just going to cut this tax. Every time we talk about tax cuts at the state level, and I'm very proud of the fact that we've cut taxes at the state level significantly over the past, 7 years I've been there, we have to also take up the question of where we reduce our revenue. That's taxes that come into us. So those are things that we directly control. This is a topic where we're talking about cutting the revenue to a different governmental body without any discussion with them about how to cut their revenue. So it's a serious topic that requires a lot of adults in the room to really think through it. Hopefully we get it right and the voters approve whatever we put on the ballot next November.
Well, you've pointed it out before is that we've used property, homeowners exemptions for public policy decisions that disabled veterans don't have to pay
Exactly.
property taxes. So all of a sudden we take away property taxes, that benefit goes away. And if it is shifted to a sales tax or a use tax, then it impacts their budgets at home.
Oh, well, there's no question in my mind that the people that benefit the most from our current property tax structure, like 100% disabled veterans, seniors, people that have been in their homes for decades, who've enjoyed the Save Our Homes 3% cap on the increase in valuation on their homes. Once if we do away with this homestead, ad valorem tax entirely, and we replace it with any other type of tax like a sales tax, suddenly the people that benefit the most from our current structure, they will most likely be paying more in whatever revenue alternative we come up with, right? Like if you're a 100% disabled veteran, you don't pay anything on your property taxes right now, and we replace that with some type of a sales tax, well, you're going to be paying more at the cash register for everything that you buy and purchase. So that's why I say there's always someone that's going to feel like a loser in these tax policy questions. And oftentimes it's the people that you want to hurt the least that feel the biggest brunt of it.
Well, and then you look at, so many services at the local level. We did a story on it back in May in looking at the city of Pensacola. Maybe about a third of their revenue comes from property taxes because they have so many other revenue sources. The county's close to between 40 and 50%. That property taxes are a big part of what they do, which funds the sheriff's office and funds fire and a lot of the services. And I think the other thing that's a little bit misleading, in talking to Bubba Peters, the property appraiser, we've had significant new construction that's been added to the property values. And with new construction, that means typically more services are needed. And so your cost to operate goes up. It's not completely all about property values increasing. It's also, we're in a high growth area right now. And that's part of it too, that kind of gets washed away, or local governments being punished for the growth that we're so excited to see.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit wonky to talk about, right? But our system on property taxes is completely unfair right now. I mean, let's just take an example of two similarly situated houses. They're the same size, same build, same value on the open market. If one person's lived in that house for 2 decades, their assessed value on that house that they get taxed on could be, say, 100 grand. But on the open market, that house's actual value is something like 750 grand. Their neighbor, on the other hand, who just moved into that house, gets assessed that their home's value at 750 grand, and they have to pay the millage rate on that full 750. So right now, you do, based on our current system, have a situation where neighbors with the same demands on our system are paying astronomically different amounts for the same demands on the system. And when it comes to like the new construction, new construction, new builds, new people moving in, new demands on our infrastructure, the upfront cost of a lot of that is the reason why we have something like impact fees. Impact fees take up, they should be designed to address the actual impact. That's their statutory purpose. And then on top of that, when you have this new construction, those people are paying significantly more in property taxes every year, despite the fact that their demand on the system is equal to someone who's lived here for 30 years. They each have one car at their house, they drive the road the same amount, they each have one child in school, et cetera, et cetera. They could still be paying extremely disparate amounts. That's why I've always thought something like a sales tax or a consumption tax makes more sense, because that's suddenly a voluntary situation where you're choosing how much you're participating in the market. And so you're choosing how much you're going to be paying in taxes, essentially, whereas you don't get to choose necessarily the valuation that gets put on your home. And oftentimes it's just an unrealized gain on the value of your home that you're just being taxed on, in perpetuity. So I agree with the idea of eliminating property taxes for homestead. I just know that tax policy is complicated and you run the risk of making no one happy.
Do you foresee any kind of guardrails being placed on local government as far as how they can, their ability to, how they handle the property taxes?
I do. I mean, tonight I have my Santa Rosa County delegation meeting, Rick. If you recall, 2 sessions ago, myself and Senator Broxton and Joel Rudman, as a delegation, we voted to change the special district fire taxing districts in Santa Rosa County from ad valorem to a fee-based model. We didn't put a low enough cap on the fee they could charge. We put a maximum, but we didn't put a low enough cap. And so these fire districts, where when we change them from ad valorem to this fee-based model, instead of framing the fee amount they're going to charge to match or modestly increase their budgets, they all went to the full amount of the fees in the statute we created, and some of them more than doubled their budget overnight in 1 year. Again, that's the whole like goldfish situation where goldfish will grow to the size of the fishbowl they're put in. That's a circumstance that, as a state legislator who only ever votes to like cut taxes and try and find ways to cut our budget, I didn't expect that. But when you're a local government on a board, someone's saying, "Look at how many lives we can save if we just tax people more. Look at all the new shiny things we can have if we just tax people more." It becomes a little bit more difficult to say no to, especially in something like a fire district board, where the vast majority of people living in that district didn't even know they had an elected fire district board. I mean, there are these circumstances across the state where some local government officials, maybe they don't realize how many eyes are on them, or maybe there are no eyes on them, and they feel like they can just levy this without really digging deep themselves. So yeah, I think that there needs to be some type of a guardrail. I don't know what that looks like other than maybe just some type of restriction on the amount you can increase every year on whatever revenue alternative we might come up with.
It's going to be, this will be a hot topic all the way through the session as it starts to shape up. We haven't gotten a lot of guidance from the governor's office as far as what he would want to see. So
Rick, all I've gotten is him pounding his desk and saying, "Do your jobs." Like it's the like he's put no actual thought in this. He just thinks that it's a great talking point at the daily press conferences he has. He just keeps saying, "Do your jobs, put it on ballot." We're going to put it on the ballot. I'm confident we're going to put some referendum on the ballot related to eliminating or reducing property taxes. But if Governor DeSantis doesn't want to be an adult in the room and engage in the discussion, but actually replacing that revenue, like an adult, like a grown-up living in the real world, then the legislature's going to have to do it for them, because someone has to be looking out for constituents. And that includes making sure local governments that pay fire and law enforcement and build a lot of the roads and cover a lot of our sewage infrastructure and water infrastructure and respond to hurricanes first before the state or federal government get there, have the revenue necessary to provide those services that our constituents expect and need. So he doesn't have to, I guess, engage in good faith, but it would, again, feel reckless if we didn't actually do the analysis necessary to make sure we're doing right by the taxpayer.
Point. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Good luck tonight with the delegates.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, take
Thanks.
care.
Thanks for watching, and to keep up with what's going on, be sure and subscribe. Just click on the little dog to the right and click the subscribe button. You can also like this video and click on the bell, which will notify you of new content. This really helps the channel grow. We appreciate you.